A very good evening to one and all who's joined us on this very special day. And yes, like you already heard me say today in my pre-recording, I'm really excited because today I'm sharing the stage with two beautiful women. And I take great pleasure first to introduce to you our guest speaker for the day, Dr. Garima Agrawal, currently practicing in Columbia Asia Hospital, Whitefield, Bangalore. Prior to this, she was in Max Hospital, New Delhi, a gold medalist in MD medicine and a top ranker in DM nephrology. She is purpose driven, who couples her deep knowledge of medicine with a sense of responsibility, compassion, and care for her patients. And what really caught my attention is the interest and the love she has in dealing with issues concerning women suffering from CKD. Dr. Garima, it's indeed a pleasure on behalf of the community to welcome you this evening.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Marianne. And
And
thank you, Kidney Warriors.
thank you. And along with me, we have another beautiful lady who's right there. I'm sure you guys would have seen her a part of the Kidney Warrior group here and there. She's got a great story to herself and a testimony to a number of women in the Kidney Warrior community itself. Sandhya Vasant, a warrior, like I said, who has on her journey dealt with CKD and pregnancy. And I know for those of you who haven't heard her story, you're waiting to hear it, but all good things or all interesting things don't come very easily. So I'm going to put that on hold while I'm going to ask Dr. Garima to take us through what she has in store for us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you again, Marianne. And thank you, Kidney Warriors. I'm going to be sharing my screen now. Today, we have a very interesting topic, a topic close to my heart about women's health and kidney disease, an often ignored subject. And issues that are not really somehow, it's very interesting. The first time I spoke to Maria, and she told me that, patients don't ask questions and they feel very shy and they feel scared to ask. And this is a topic where I think questions are never asked. Women are so shy to ask things regarding their fertility, sexuality, contraception. And I was looking at American data, and they say some 10% people ask about it. But honestly, in my practice, in the practice of my colleagues, I think less than 1% Indian women bring up these issues, but they're so close to our heart. So let's begin. Are we ready, Marianne? Should I begin?
Yes, Doc, please.
Okay. So my topic today is pregnancy and women's health and kidney disease. Thank you, Marianne, for that kind introduction. I'm a consultant nephrologist at Columbia Asia Hospital in Bangalore. So as we know, CKD is currently the 8th leading cause of death in women, causing at least 600,000 deaths each year of women alone. Um, so the issues that are specific to women are, first is fertility. Most women want to have a child, want to have be fertile, and CKD women are no different. Then there is the pregnancy related complications. Pregnancy puts you at risk for acute kidney injury and hypertensive disorders, and that puts you at risk for CKD. Then again, CKD itself harms the pregnancy and puts the pregnancy at risk. Something else which is also very particular for our population is access to healthcare. Even though in most diseases, the incidence of kidney disease in men and women is the same, but the access to healthcare for women is much less in most cultures, sadly, and this is data even from the West. This is a common fact all nephrologists know. While women are more likely to donate a kidney for transplantation, they are much less likely to receive one when in need. And as I said, this is a statistic from around the world. This is something that caught my eye and shocked me, honestly. In India, the access to treatment is, of course, inadequate for women in all parameters. But we'd all say that it's because of money, and money women might not be earning. But in fact, they did a study in Andhra Pradesh where dialysis is actually funded by the government. And even when the dialysis is funded by the government, they found that 73% of those accessing publicly funded dialysis were men. It's hard for me to believe that in the whole state, only 30% of women were dialysis patients. It just shows you that even when it's free, women have less access to healthcare compared to men. So moving forward on that really somber note. So how I plan my talk is like a frequently asked questions kind of talk, where these are the questions that are frequently asked off of me and most nephrologists. I'm going to go over the questions and answer them. And of course, like Marianne pointed out, we'll take questions from the audience. I'm very happy to answer them. So the most common question that women ask is, I have kidney disease, can I get pregnant? So pregnancy, of course, is possible in all phases of kidney disease. This is something people don't know, but actually pregnancy is possible in all phases of kidney disease. The problem is, as the kidney disease advances, as your renal function goes down, your risks of pregnancy, adverse pregnancy outcomes, your risk to your baby, as well as your fertility itself goes down. Now, it is seen that normal or mild renal derangement of, if you take all the women who are of childbearing age, 3% of all women of childbearing age actually have renal dysfunction. And it is seen that, and on the other statistics, women who have advanced kidney failure, it is seen 1 in 150 women are affected who have advanced renal failure with reduced fertility. So they have really bad fertility. They have high chances of miscarriages and high chances of pregnancy failures. So pregnancy is therefore very rare for women who are on dialysis. Again, as I said, it's possible, but it's very rare. And the fertility is as low as 0.9% in women on dialysis. It's the highest difficulty, as I said, of those who have advanced. As the kidney failure advances, your chances of conception are even poorer. So the answer to that question is yes. If you have kidney disease, you can get pregnant, but the chances dip as your kidney failure advances. The other question I get asked is, I'm pregnant and I have CKD. Can pregnancy affect my kidney disease? So this happens. We have a lot of patients who have unplanned pregnancies. They come into us with pregnancy. They are actually pregnant and they have kidney disease. And of course, the first question is, okay, if I continue with this pregnancy, is my kidney disease going to get worse? So yes, kidney disease is going to get worse. It is seen that if you have CKD stage 1, and please understand CKD, kidney disease stage 1, is when you have almost normal creatinine, but you just have some structural abnormality in your kidney. Even then, the chances of you having advancement of your kidney failure, if you have a pregnancy, is 7.6%. In advanced kidney disease, there is more than 20% chance that your kidney failure will advance. The highest risks are for those people whose GFR or their kidney function, kidney glomerular filtration rate is less than 40, or those who have a high amount of protein in their urine. What are the other things that pregnancy can do to your kidney function is that if you have already protein leakage in your urine, pregnancy can increase that. It can worsen your proteinuria. Also, it worsens your blood pressure control. Also, as I said, all pregnancies in India, it is seen, I would show you the statistics later, that of all pregnancies, preeclampsia is a complication of pregnancy that can happen in 8 to 10% of normal women. In kidney disease patients, these chances are very high. And if you do develop preeclampsia, then the chances of your kidney failure getting worse are even higher. Now, addition of other insults, like I'm sure Sandhya's story we'll hear in a while, but other insults on top of a kidney disease and a pregnancy, like say if you have a hemorrhage, if you have a bleeding episode, or say if you are given painkillers or drugs that can harm your kidney, then the chances of your kidney failure getting worse are even higher. So this is a study which is often quoted everywhere around the world when they talk about pregnancy and kidney disease. I just wanted to show you this chart, which shows this is creatinine. When creatinine is less than 1.4, the chances of you losing more than 25% of your kidney function are around 10% after pregnancy. But as you go down, I mean, please understand 1.4 to 2 creatinine is not that high, but even with a creatinine of 1.4 to 2, if you get pregnant, the chances of your kidney function worsening increases as high as 20%, and during pregnancy as high as 40%. And any creatinine more than 2, if you go ahead with a pregnancy, during pregnancy, 70% chance that your kidney failure will worsen, 50% chance that this worsening will persist even after the delivery. And the chances of you going into end-stage renal disease that is requiring dialysis as high as 35%. As I quote this data, I want to remind you that this is Western data, and what we have seen is Indian patients, because of their low weight and poor nutrition, do worse. So these are already alarming statistics. Here, I'd like to say that most of us, most nephrologists, in any woman with a creatinine of more than 2, would advise to not continue with the pregnancy. Uh, of course, counsel them about the high risks involved with this. Going forward, so that is how can pregnancy affect my kidney disease. But more precious to all women is their pregnancy and their child. So can kidney disease affect my pregnancy? If I get pregnant and I have CKD, can my pregnancy be affected by my kidney disease? Yes, of course. Coming back to the same table, I wanted to show you here that this is the effects of pregnancy outcome in women who have creatinine of more than 2. The chances that your fetal growth, meaning your baby's growth, will be restricted intrauterine are as high as 65%. The chances that you will have a preterm delivery if your creatinine is more than 2 during pregnancy is as high as 90%. And the chances that you will have pregnancy related high blood pressure is 60%. Very sadly, also chances that the baby will not make it and you will have perinatal deaths if you have pregnancy when a creat is more than 2 is as high as 10%. The very, very sad and alarming statistics, but all women who suffer from kidney disease should not bow down to social pressures or even emotional pressures, and please consider all of these factors when they decide to go ahead with their pregnancy. As is expected, on dialysis, these outcomes are much worse. So the chances of preterm delivery, chances of fetal growth restriction are as high as almost more than 90%. And the chances that the baby won't survive is 50-50. 50% chance if a dialysis woman gets pregnant that the baby might not make it. Interestingly, it is seen that this statistic is a little better for women who were not on dialysis when they started pregnancy. So women who conceived when they were not on dialysis, but later went on to have dialysis, 75% of their babies do survive. But if you're on dialysis when you get pregnant, the chances of survival of the infant is as low as 50%. So what are the risks of kidney disease on pregnancy? First is to the baby. Your baby will have intrauterine growth restriction, so it will be a small baby. Very high chances that you will have a preterm delivery. Baby might be born a stillbirth. These babies have low birth weight. Usually it is seen that CKD mothers, when they deliver the babies, are of low birth weight. Very high chances of CKD mothers delivering babies who require ICU admission postpartum. Also, very high chances that in the neonatal period, in the first 1 month, that the baby may not make it. Sadly, factors like low birth weight, neonatal ICU admission, neonatal mortality are also associated in babies with chances of developing kidney disease later in life. So it's a bit of a vicious cycle here. To the mother, the risks are, of course, that there are very high chances you will get into preeclampsia. There is chances of worsening of pregnancy-induced hypertension. Already, CKD patients are hypertensive. The blood pressure worsens when they go into pregnancy. And very high chances of them not being able to deliver normally vaginally and requiring cesarean sections. Now, what about pregnancy based on the cause of CKD? This is a question I get asked often, ki my CKD was because of this. Do I have a worse outcome than my CKD because of something else? Yes. I mean, if you are chronic kidney disease, mostly the common etiologies, the outcomes are more or less the same. But certain diseases carry a specific risk that doctors have to be aware of, or your obstetrician has to be aware of when advising you for pregnancy. For example, if your kidney disease is because of lupus nephritis or SLE, then it is seen that lupus mothers' pregnancy outcomes are worse than the same mothers if they had CKD from any other cause. So here you have to be extra careful. Also, those of you who suffer from lupus or who have a family member who has lupus will know it is associated with something called APLA. APLA is a tendency where there's a tendency for clotting in your body. So APLA has much worse outcomes in pregnancy. In fact, APLA ka diagnosis itself is made. One of the criteria is to have pregnancy losses. Then that indicates that the person might be suffering from APLA. Coming to autosomal dominant polycystic kidney kidney disease, again, a very common disease. If women with this disease get pregnant, then besides the usual risk, urinary tract infection is something that we have to watch out for. They have more chances of urinary tract infections during pregnancy. Also, there's chances of cyst bleeding because of the hormonal imbalance during pregnancy. There tends to be, some women have a lot of cyst bleeding. Coming to diabetic patients, so besides the kidney risk, diabetic patients also have increased risk than other CKD women of more fetal abnormalities. Their babies have more chances of having abnormal birth and more chances of fetal loss if diabetes is the cause of your kidney disease. Okay, so that was about how pregnancy can be affected by a kidney disease. Everyone, we all think our oasis is the kidney transplant, and a lot of women I know have gotten transplant with the hope that their hormonal cycle will be normalized and they will be able to conceive again. I got a kidney transplant. What are the chances I will get pregnant? So after a kidney transplant, of course, fertility is increased considerably. In fact, a recent study that was published in the US, they showed that women with kidney transplant had 72% fertility, pregnancy, conception rate compared to general population, which was 62%. And we think why women with kidney transplant had higher fertility is probably because they are so well looked after. They are constantly in touch with their doctors. They take care of their health. So yes, fertility definitely increases after kidney transplant. The overall live birth rate is also higher than the general population. This is data from the US, which I'm quoting. And it was seen that overall live birth rate in pregnancy after kidney transplant was more than the general population also. The pregnancy losses that are seen in kidney transplant are usually seen in first trimester. So if in first 3 months, if a woman is able to go through that, then usually the pregnancy seems to be fine. Something that we must remember that I think even nephrologists fail to counsel the patient, and the patient also in their happiness of restored fertility forget, is that even though your fertility rate is higher, the rates of preeclampsia, that is high BP during pregnancy, the rates of growth restriction in the baby, and the rates of preterm birth are still higher for kidney transplant than a general population. So yes, when compared to CKD, of course, you have higher chances of fertility when you go for a kidney transplant. But please remember, this is also a high-risk pregnancy, and you should be alert that you have more chances of baby abnormalities as well as mother having high blood pressure. Also, the drugs, when a transplanted woman gets a pregnancy, we have to actually adjust the drugs. I'm going to go on that later in the section where I have made a list of drugs that can and cannot be taken. But something to remember is the tacrolimus levels need to be adjusted in women who get pregnant after kidney transplant. Then another question I get asked is, I'm pregnant and the doctor said that I have hypertension or preeclampsia. So this is something, it's very interesting. I get asked a lot by caregivers, wives of patients, and they are so worried about kidney disease in their child that the moment they have a high blood pressure, many times they come and ask me, Ki, doctor, okay, I have hypertension, or doctor said preeclampsia, my kidneys will be fine now, or my baby's kidneys will be fine now. And it's of course a very valid query. So before we go on to that, I just wanted to describe to you what are the types of hypertension that you see in pregnancy. One is chronic hypertension, meaning a woman who got pregnant, if she got diagnosed that she has high BP before 20 weeks of pregnancy, that means she most likely had BP before only. So she is a hypertensive, but it was never diagnosed, and pregnancy, when blood pressure was checked, it was found out. Another type of hypertension is gestational hypertension. Matlab, the pregnancy itself gives you high blood pressure. So sometimes it's because of placental changes that women tend to develop high blood pressure, and that happens after 20 weeks. So women often say that first 3 months though nothing was told. Now in the second trimester, I'm being told my BP is high. This is called gestational hypertension. A little bit of an advanced stage of this gestational hypertension is preeclampsia. Preeclampsia may not only do these women develop hypertension after 20 weeks, they also have protein leakage in their urine. And there's some evidence even of organ damage. They sometimes have kidney damage, they have liver damage, their enzymes are raised, etc. And what is worse than just developing preeclampsia, and it is something very common in our kidney patients who get pregnant, is they already have hypertension. And after 20 weeks, we see that their hypertension gets worse and their kidney damage starts accelerating. This is preeclampsia superimposed on chronic hypertension. So any woman is actually at risk, I mean, especially a CKD woman going into pregnancy, is at risk of all of these different types of hypertensive disorders, which are pregnancy related. Now, normally pregnancy related disorders complicate 6 to 8% of all pregnancy, meaning any normal 100 women get pregnant, 8 of them will probably develop one of these pregnancy related disorder. In India, as I always stress upon, in India, the data is different. In India, we see that normally itself, 10% of our general population of childbearing women get preeclampsia. Now, preeclampsia, I mean, typically the definition of preeclampsia is it's a pregnancy-related disorder, and once the pregnancy ends, the woman recovers. But unfortunately, of late, a lot of data is showing that preeclampsia in pregnancy can actually lead to kidney damage later in life. And it is seen that these women who had preeclampsia have 4 to 5 times more likely to have kidney failure in the future. Again, I was looking at some data before preparing for this talk, and there's a Swedish registry data that came out in 2020. They looked at 19 lakh women, and they found that all the Swedish women who had preeclampsia, and they followed them up to see if they developed kidney failure or not. Definitely, the preeclampsia population compared to the general population had a higher incidence of developing kidney failure. And in fact, earlier, it was seen that 2.5 years earlier, kidney dysfunction was diagnosed in women who had preeclampsia in pregnancy compared to the general population. Also, they noted a very interesting thing, that those women who have glomerular disease or protein leakage in their urine, they seem to have a much worse prognosis in the future if they had preeclampsia during their pregnancy. So just to alert that, once because this happens unfortunately with a lot of women, and they come later, like 10 years after their childbirth, and say, yeah, I've developed kidney failure now. My pregnancy time, there was some high blood pressure, but after that, nothing. But actually the problem is that it was never checked. It was never followed up. And I know doctors are equally responsible, but if you knew that you have a higher chance of having kidney failure in the future, so eclamptic women, even with normal kidney function, should keep control on their blood pressure, should keep control on their kidney functions, and have regular checkups thereof. Now, coming to the babies born to preeclamptic women, and this I'm talking about just preeclampsia and normal women who didn't have kidney disease. Those women who develop preeclampsia in their pregnancy, it is a higher chance that their babies might have low birth weight, or they might have smaller babies. Smaller babies in the future are known to have more chances of developing kidney disease and metabolic disorders and hypertension. When they looked at a subset of adults who developed kidney disease and hypertension and diabetes, they found that a lot of these people were actually small for age babies. So as I said, it's a bit of a vicious cycle where preeclampsia may lead to smaller babies, and then smaller babies may lead to in these babies adult life kidney failure. Now, as I said, preeclampsia is related to more maternal CKD. The risk differs in different kinds of CKD. More risk is there in hypertensive kidney disease, diabetic kidney disease, and glomerular kidney disease if you develop preeclampsia. Also, all kinds of, I am focusing on preeclampsia because preeclampsia is a disorder which is known to have high blood pressure and some kind of organ damage. But all kinds of hypertension in pregnancy have a higher risk of kidney dysfunction in the future compared to normal population who did not have hypertension in pregnancy. Which is why, again, stressing on the fact that any woman, I would strongly urge any woman who had a hypertensive disorder during her pregnancy, please continue systematic monitoring of your renal functions and your blood pressure, so that you can be alert in the future for developing any kind of kidney dysfunction. Now I have kidney disease. I want to get pregnant. You said my creatinine has to be stable. My creatinine is stable now. Now tell me how long before I can start conception planning, because I want to have a baby. Again, a very common question that women of childbearing age suffering from kidney disease have. Most important, post-renal transplant. This is the majority of our population after women after renal transplant, especially childbearing age, want to start planning for a baby. First, most important, you have to wait till your kidney functions are stable. Second, you might be on some medicines post-transplant, especially like MMF and ACE, ARB, BP medicines, which are not safe for your baby. So you have to wait for your doctor to change them. Some of these medicines should be changed 3 to 6 months even before you start planning for conception. So conception, say, 3 to 6 months before. So most common data says that after a transplant, all the pregnancy conception planning should be done after at least 1 year. There is some American data now saying that that these statistics and the outcomes are even much better if you wait for 2 years post transplant, where all your immunosuppressive medicine is at its lowest doses. So when they compared women who got pregnant 1 year post transplant versus women who got pregnant 2 years post transplant, it was seen that those who waited for two or more years had a little bit better outcome of their pregnancy as well as their baby, as compared to those who went ahead in 1 year. Coming to lupus nephritis or vasculitis, if your kidney functions are stable after treatment of your lupus or your vasculitis, I would recommend, guidelines would recommend you wait for at least 6 months till your disease is stable and all your parameters are stable, and then plan for conception. Diabetic nephropathy, it is very important, women who are diabetics, to please control their blood pressure, BP, and their protein leakage in the urine, because in very early fetal development, high blood sugar in a mother, protein leakage in the mother is known to have adverse outcomes for the baby. So make sure all of these things are under control before you plan for conception. This is something modern working women, generally women, all of us are, including myself, are planning pregnancies later on in life than the traditional age group which was. So we think about how to preserve our fertility, freeze our eggs. So this is a question asked a lot from me now that I'm in Bangalore with the IT crowd and women who are working, is that I want to get pregnant in the future. Looking at my disease, my doctor is saying it's possible. Do you recommend I go for IVF, or should I preserve my eggs right now so that I can conceive later? Very valid question. So regarding freezing of eggs, I think this should be considered strongly in any woman who's going to be treated with cyclophosphamide. In lupus patients, in vasculitis patients, cyclophosphamide is a drug which is used to treat these women, and cyclophosphamide is known to cause infertility. This infertility caused by this drug is related to the duration of the drug and the dose of the drug. So I would say before even that cyclophosphamide is planned for you, your doctor said, okay, you need to be treated with this drug. If you are planning a pregnancy, you plan to conceive in the future, you may go for cryopreservation of your eggs, so that because the fetotoxic effects or the genotoxic effects of cyclophosphamide are not affected in your eggs. Also, some women who are newly diagnosed CKD, I've seen this in a few of my patients who started having kidney failure, who were early diagnosed and they wanted to conceive. They did cryopreservation. This is not guideline based, but this is something that can be thought of by women, because you can preserve your eggs later on. Even if your kidney disease advances, you can consider for options like surrogacy, etc., to have babies with your own eggs, even though you may not be yourself able to have the baby. But surrogacy is an option, and of course adoption and all of those things later on can be thought of. Coming to assisted reproduction, the assisted reproduction is what we call IVF treatment, what everyone refers to. IVF treatment, one issue is that many times after IVF, they tend to implant more than one egg. So they implant 2-3 embryos in the woman, which is why you'll see a lot of IVF babies are twins or triplets, etc. Because for high chances of success, higher amount of embryos are transplanted back into the, inserted into the woman. But I would recommend that in CKD women who are going for IVF, go for only a single embryo transfer. You can talk to your gynecologist, and your nephrologist can talk to your gynecologist regarding this. Coming to genetic counseling, this is also a question often asked, especially women suffering from polycystic kidney disease or other kinds of genetic diseases, that I want to have a baby, but I don't want my baby to have the disease. But in fact, some of the inheritable renal diseases are indicated for pre-implantation genetic diagnosis. Pre-implantation genetic diagnosis is if you went for assisted reproduction, they did this embryo for you, they did IVF and they did the embryo for you. Before the embryo is even implanted into your body, there are techniques where they can do a genetic analysis of the embryo and tell you if the embryo has that genetic disorder that you're suffering from. Now, I have given you so much lecture about what are the risks, what you have to be careful about, but there are still women, and why not? We have advanced technologies, we have specialists available, and every woman has a right to say, I am pregnant, I have kidney disease, I understand the risk, and I want to continue with my pregnancy. Now, doctor, it is on you. Tell me how I should manage, what I should do. So, very simple. Very early on, when you plan conception, you follow up with your nephrologist, with an obstetrician, with a fetal medicine expert. I strongly urge you go to a higher center with all of these facilities available where you are in touch with all of these people who can take care of you all through your pregnancy and through your postpartum period. Make sure your doctor, all the doctors you're consulting, stop all the harmful drugs. Talk to your doctors. Tell them you're planning conception. Please make sure all my drugs are safe for a pregnancy. At the outset itself, check your serum creatinine, check your hemoglobin, do a urine test for protein assessment. Because as I said, a higher protein excretion, more than 1 gram, is associated with a worse outcome in pregnancy. So get these things checked early on and have your doctors help you manage them and counsel you accordingly. All those patients who are post-transplant or for some other reasons are on steroids during their pregnancies, please make sure that you screen yourself or get yourself screened for diabetes or gestational diabetes that develops during pregnancy. Regarding scans during pregnancy, there's not anything particular, but in CKD women who want to get pregnant or who are pregnant, we suggest that at the time you find out, you get a scan. You get all your routine pregnancy scans. And then in the third trimester, you get a special scan for your fetal growth, because we know the number one risk factor with kidney disease is that fetal growth might be retarded. So you can get a scan that time, an additional scan. Of course, you need to be started on folic acid supplementation and low dose aspirin supplementation, which your doctor will start you on. Your BP target should always be 135/85, below that. So you have to make sure your BP is controlled. If you're a woman of CKD or you're a woman on dialysis who's pregnant, yes, you can continue IV iron, continue erythropoietin, and take vitamin D supplements. Because in fact, in pregnancy, the demand for erythropoietin and vitamin D increases. But unfortunately, a CKD kidney is not able to fulfill that demand. So pregnant women, in fact, require higher doses of erythropoietin and higher doses of vitamin D supplements. Now coming to the drugs that are safe to use during pregnancy, all women who are hypertensive or who are CKD, please remember low-dose aspirin is safe for you. BP medicines, there are few medicines which are safe during pregnancy and breastfeeding. They are labetalol, nifedipine, methyl-dopa. If you're not on them, you're on something else, you may ask your doctor to switch you on these because these are safe. As far as transplant medicines go, prednisolone or steroids are safe, tacrolimus is safe, cyclosporin is safe, and most doctors will convert you from MMF to azathioprine if you're planning a pregnancy. For women who are suffering from SLE or lupus or vasculitis, hydroxychloroquine is a safe drug to use in pregnancy. Even if you have a and your doctor recommends IVIG or plasmapheresis, these treatments are also safe during pregnancy. Dialysis is also safe during pregnancy, especially hemodialysis. In fact, peritoneal dialysis patients who get pregnant, we ask them to shift over to hemodialysis. And even low molecular weight heparin, which is given during dialysis, is safe during pregnancy. Coming to drugs that cannot be taken in pregnancy, please remember, no painkillers. You may go to an obstetrician who may write you something, but please check with your, and most commonly not obstetrician, it's our local family doctor. We call them, we have pain and you're advised something, please don't take any non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs or painkillers in pregnancy. Your BP medicine has to be changed. If you're on thiazides or ACE inhibitors, your doctor should change it. Phosphate binders, commonly for our CKD patients, we give sevelamer, revlimid, not considered very safe in pregnancy. MMF needs to be stopped. As I said, at least 3 months before conception, MMF needs to be stopped. Sirolimus, everolimus, not safe. Rituximab, cyclophosphamide, and methotrexate are also not safe during pregnancy. So please make sure you're not on any of these drugs, and if you are on, please change them. Coming to contraception, now this is a subject that I really want to stress on, because India, because of our social constructs and our hesitation, we never ask our doctor about contraception. We should. So all women of reproductive age group who have CKD, you know your creatinine is high, I've given you so many risk factors, you don't want to get pregnant. I know you think that you won't, but please remember, most of the pregnancies that happen in transplant and CKD are unplanned pregnancies, because women do not take care of contraception. Teratogenic medicine, if you're on MMF, methotrexate, cyclophosphamide, make sure you're on contraception. If you have active glomerulonephritis, if you're post-transplant less than 1 year, if you have any kind of graft rejection, and any woman who does not wish to conceive, also I wanted to stress on, any woman who does not wish to conceive, please take contraception. Now, what is the contraception which is safe for women with CKD? There is barrier method, which is used very commonly in India and in the Indian population. Please remember, it has a 20% failure rate. And women are the one who are going to be affected. So please do not count on barrier contraception. Progesterone only pills. So, you know, there are different kinds of pills that come that the obstetrician advises you. There's progesterone only, and there's pills which have estrogen and progesterone. So estrogen is not good for you if you're a CKD or a hypertensive patient. Please ask your obstetrician to advise you progesterone only pills. Also IUDs, that is intrauterine devices, especially the Mirena device, which is commonly available in India. Any obstetrician can place for you. I personally think IUD is a very good option, because you don't have to take the pill, you don't have the risk of, you know, missing your pill. So you can get an IUD placed. It is safe for women with kidney disease and transplant to have the IUD placed. Also, there are subdermal implants that are available. It's a small injection which is given subdermally, and it lasts for around 3 to 6 months, the drug's effect in stopping your pregnancy. So these are the preferred methods of contraception. Now, before I end, I want to stress that I know everyone will be like, okay, doc, you scared me. I don't even have kidney disease, but you're scaring me कि मेरे को kidney disease हो जाएगी. So I have no such intention. You want to make sure you are safe, your child is safe, and you don't develop kidney disease in the future. Again, a question which is asked very often from me by neighbors and friends, because I'm a kidney doctor. So I'm going to give you this advice. Any woman, just make sure why not assess a kidney function, because we know that the risk with pregnancy and kidney disease in general population is so high. I would urge obstetricians to advise all women who get pregnant, get a kidney test done, get a preconception, just a urine test done. Increase awareness. Understand you need to check your blood pressure. It is so sad when I get patients, they come back and say, I had this in pregnancy, but I never checked my creatinine after, or during the entire pregnancy, never it was checked, never BP was checked. And this happens in smaller places where women are not aware more so. So please be aware of all these things. Early screening for hypertension, of course, make sure any woman who's pregnant, please keep constant check on your blood pressure so that you don't develop any complications, and ensure proper nutrition. I'm stressing because it is seen that maternal deficiencies of iron, folic acid, some other micro and macronutrients are known to affect the fetal development of the kidney. So sometimes it's assumed that childhood kidney diseases may be because of poor maternal nutrition, and there is some correlation there. So make sure that as any pregnant woman, your nutrition is intact and you have all the supplements that you need. Watch your weight. Women who are obese have a higher risk of developing kidney disease than men who are obese. So women have to be even more careful about their weight during pregnancy and otherwise. Monitoring of babies born preterm. I told you that any baby who was born preterm or small for age or low birth weight has a risk of developing kidney disease in the future, metabolic disorders. So keep a check in the future of kidney functions. So that was all from me. I'm open to any kind of questions that you might have. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk today. Sandhya, hi. Can you hear me? Should I stop sharing my screen? Okay. I can't hear you. Sandhya, you're mute.
I think can you hear me now?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, sorry, so sorry about it. I guess Marianne has lost the connection, so let's chat until then. Let's have the Q&A session probably until she's back.
Sure.
Yes, like you know,
Sure.
I'm Sandhya Vasantakumar. I'm with the Kidney Warriors Foundation for 2 years now, and yeah, I've been closely interacting with all the patients also. Like you mentioned earlier, yes, even I have been through CKD. My journey started when I was the age of 27, and with my second child. See, that was postpartum hemorrhage, they call it as, since I didn't know anything about, I had no clue what postpartum hemorrhage was then. And I guess it was due to excess bleeding that I had to go through all these complications. By God's grace, now I'm all good with the post-transplant. And I wish Marianne was here to ask few questions, but let me ask few questions from my end.
Sure.
Will that be okay?
Sandhya. Yes, of course. We are open to all
Yes,
kinds of
because
discussion.
I'm sure these questions have been asked by other patients with whom I interact with. So it is in general and a few questions in personal as well. First question is, see, that mine was, since it was a postpartum hemorrhage, we both had problem, my son and myself. So this is,
Right, of course.
I was told that this is a very rare scenario of postpartum hemorrhage getting a CKD chronic. Even if it is acute, it can be reversed, but in my case, unfortunately, it didn't happen. So I had to continue with dialysis. What my question is, my son, although it was an accident, it is not genetically, happened. Will it continue? I'm asking in general, will it continue to our children, or it is just with me?
No. I think in your case, what would have happened, Sandhya, is I'm assuming is that postpartum hemorrhage, when it is very severe, the blood supply of the kidney is completely affected, and the kidney goes into something called an acute cortical necrosis. So that was literally an acute insult that can happen to any very normal kidney. So there is no genetic basis of your kidney getting affected and then it affecting your son in the future. But if if your child was born, say, low birth weight, like I said, just keep an eye out. I am not even meaning you should do KFTs for children. Do not recommend that. Just as they grow older, having a check on blood pressure and having a check on kidney functions as part of routine annual tests, maybe after a certain age. That's all you need to do. I don't think in your particular case it should affect your child at all.
Exactly. See, what happened was, usually I don't know how it affects the children, but what I have noticed is, since we both were critical during the post delivery, when my son was critical, he was an incubator or something. He had to consume since it was an internal bleeding, he had to take all the blood. He drank, I guess that's what I was informed.
Right.
And what happened was, now what I notice is, probably it could be a child stunting, because he is not to his height for his age, or his weight is, child stunting and wasting is actually happening. So what I felt was, maybe it is because of postpartum hemorrhage as well, due to internal bleeding, because most of them are not aware about it. Through Kidney Warriors Foundation, we are educating all the women about it, because there is lack of awareness on CKD, because this is a very rare case and my survival is rarest to rarest. So it is good that I survived. At least I can educate them. And
very good.
And yes, and one more question what I usually get is about the lupus, like you mentioned. What those lupus patients, women patients, ask me is it relatively high risk than CKD getting pregnant?
Yes, it is. Lupus nephritis with the same level of kidney function versus CKD with the same level of kidney function, the complication in pregnancy related to lupus nephritis are more.
Yes.
Because lupus is not only a disease of the kidney, it's an inflammatory disorder which affects your whole body. And so, yes, lupus nephritis patients carry a slightly higher risk than CKD.
Because they are like lupus, although most of them are not on dialysis, since it affects most of the organs, and they might even end up, because I'm not much knowledgeable with all these medical terms.
Of course. I'm sorry if I overwhelmed you with medical terms. I was trying my best to keep it,
No, it was really good data what you showed, because I have seen this, not entirely, but what I've heard is these are the questions which pop up after seeing your presentation. Is what I felt. Okay, these are the things, these are the questions where patients were asking me, which I was not really aware of. But now that I have gained a little bit of knowledge on what you presented, it was really helpful to larger extent. And I'm sure people who are watching it would have been benefited. Thank you so much for that, Doctor. And yes,
I hope.
also, I don't know if I directed those lupus patients to the concerned nephrologist. But although what small advices what I gave them was, I don't know if I was wrong, but I just wanted to ask if it was right. What I told them, see, it is high risk, yes. Also, it might have premature, delivery. Is that right?
Correct. Yes. Preterm delivery risk is high. Low birth weight risk is high. Pregnancy loss risk, actually, lupus carries that risk of pregnancy loss more than CKD because of many
Yeah.
factors. So that risk
Hope I
is
was
high.
right.
Indeed.
Yeah,
Indeed.
we
Yes.
actually had a meeting with two of the patients. What I did was I invited a technician who advised on lupus, and she's a woman who went through
Okay.
this. Had a lot of trouble, and she already has two children, luckily, but she wanted to
Achoo.
know, will that affect their children? Because I'm not sure if it is like
So lupus does not, SLE lupus does not have a genetic preponderance more than any other, like other routine diseases. It's not like SLE women have children who have SLE or anything. But again, it's just the complications during pregnancy that may affect the child and you have to be careful about. But no, not like if you have
okay.
lupus, your child will be born with lupus. No.
Okay, I guess that's that's a relief actually. That's a relief.
Yeah.
And yes, I most of the questions I really forgot those questions.
I think Marianne is back. She'll want to
Yeah,
ask.
yes.
She's
Let
back
her
with her box of questions for
questions.
us.
Yes, let her
Thank
take
you,
over
Sandhya.
there.
Uh, Sandhya, in case I have a net problem, you can continue asking your questions. And in fact, I fed you in with some more questions that came in from the Kidney Warrior community. If my net goes off, I'm going to request you to please do the honors of taking over the Q&A session.
Yeah, let me check. I didn't check. Let me. I'm so sorry.
Doc, I will just go on. Here we have a
Yeah.
patient who says, um, my CKD was detected 1 year post delivery. Okay, and I remember you mentioning this in your presentation when you took us through. Her creatine went to 3, and that's when she realized she had CKD issues. And but however, they never knew till now when the disease started and the reason for which it could have started. So now she's completed 3 years. Her son is now 3 years old, and her constant fear is since she was not aware whether the CKD disease could have been during her pregnancy. In that case, she wants to know that is there a chance for a child to have the disease. I think that's what you guys were also talking about in particular to a particular CKD. But in this case, I don't know what was the reason for a CKD. And even she does not know. All she wants to know is there any checkups that she has to do routine to keep an eye on her son?
Not when a 3-year-old child, you would know, like mothers are very intuitive about children having any kind of, issues or abnormal urine and all that. So keep a check on that, of course. But yeah, in the future, like when they're older, keep a check on their blood pressure, keep a check on their, maybe a routine health checkup for all kinds of diseases should be done. But no, particularly if she was diagnosed 1 year before, they don't know if there's a genetic cause to it. I don't think there is reason to worry. If the child has shown also no symptoms in 3 years, I don't think there is reason to worry.
Thank you, Doc. My next question is, I know you took us through beautifully that pregnancy post-transplant, and you did mention to us that post 1 year is a safer period to have a baby in case you do have a baby. But the question over here, somebody wants to know is, does the transplant medication interfere with the health of the child in the womb?
Yes, it does. So commonly after transplant, people are started on 3 medicines. That's tacrolimus, MMF, and steroids. So MMF is known to be fetotoxic. In fact, MMF should be stopped 3 months, at least 3 months before even planning of conception. So if any transplant woman is planning pregnancy, please talk to your nephrologist, you can't stop it right like that. You need to have your doctor change it. So doctor may change it to a safer alternative. Besides that, if you are on safer drugs like tacrolimus, azathioprine and steroid, they are okay to continue during your pregnancy and during breastfeeding as well. Again, sirolimus and everolimus, also the data is very less. So those are another transplant drugs which should not be continued if you are planning pregnancy. They are not safe for the child.
What if the pregnancy was not planned and just happened in spite of precautions? In that case, if the medicines is not stopped 3 months before, then how would the nephrologist progress with this?
So that's a very common scenario, Marianne, that it happens. As I said, there's data to say 1/3 to 2/3 of pregnancies post-transplant are unplanned. So this happens. In that case, I don't think the indication is so strong to stop the pregnancy because the drug has been taken. But then the anomaly scans and the genetic testing, that is should be done more seriously, and the obstetric follow-up should be more serious in these women who have taken these drugs. So we do like these anomaly scans as soon as this is diagnosed, and then subsequently to see if there's any evidence of these anomalies which are known to happen with these drugs.
Thank you, Doc. Talking about genetic testing, that's my next question. Inherited disease like Alport syndrome embryos, genetic testing, is it available in India?
Yes, it is. Alport syndrome is tested, and I just mentioned in my talk, in fact, pre-implantation genetic testing is available in India, which is if you have gone through IVF or something, before the embryo is even implanted into you, they can do the genetic testing and see if the disease is present or not. And if you have had a natural pregnancy, then amniotic fluid testing for genetic disorders is also done. And it is available, at least in the larger cities, it is available. You can find the centers in the nearest city to you and go for it.
How does the menstrual cycles get affected for a CKD disease woman?
So menstrual cycle, our normal menstrual cycle of a woman is basically an up and down cycle of hormones. There's hormonal surges, and then the hormonal surge is withdrawn, after which the bleeding happens. Unfortunately, in CKD, these surges are blunted. So when there is going to be no surge of hormone, there's going to be no withdrawal of the hormonal surge. So this is what we call an ovulatory cycle. Matlab, ovulation only doesn't happen in the cycle. So these women will have these abnormal cycles, abnormal timings, very common to have bleeding, menorrhagia, meaning too much bleeding during periods for CKD women. It's all because of the hormonal, the entire physiology is disrupted in CKD.
Doc, let's talk about a question that probably as a country we consider taboo. CKD and a woman's sexuality. Yeah, does a woman with CKD disease have the same sexual wants like a regular woman? Would you like to say something more about that? Elaborate, please.
I am so glad, Marianne, you brought it up. And you are right. We consider it so taboo that I wanted to include it in my talk. And I thought maybe it'll be too much, for the audience. I'm so glad you brought it up. Yes, CKD affects libido. The libido is directly affected because the hormones that affect induce sexuality are blunted in CKD. Second thing is CKD women have anemia. So anemia makes you tired, and CKD women have uremia, which makes you generally feel weak and not enthusiastic. Plus CKD, the other thing ignored in our country is mental health. CKD women face so much burden. Generally, women face so much burden with family and societal pressures. Especially women who get CKD, I feel the depression is much higher than normal than men who are suffering from the same disorder. So yes, their sexuality is greatly affected, and I feel that Indian couples who have one partner suffering from this should get the help needed. There is help available, both in terms of counseling and in terms of drugs to help them with their sexuality.
So you when you made a statement saying drugs to help with the sexuality, so there are drugs available that could help with this issue.
So there are drugs like, the drugs that are known to cause increased erections in men, or also stimulate, help with the depression in women. So it depends on the cause. What is the root cause of your loss of sexuality, and it can be helped. But unfortunately, the direct loss of libido that happens with CKD, we don't have a cure for that. Like there is no drug that can, bring your libido back. It's multifactorial and we can help with those.
Doc, moving on to the TAC levels, you did mention one point, and then I don't know if I missed your presentation because I went off, but a friend of mine asked, does pregnancy mean the TAC level decreases since the baby also consumes TAC?
Yes.
And this is a patient who unfortunately had a still baby, so I would like to know a little more detailed information on this.
Yes, of course. So TAC levels. So it's not direct. It's an oversimplification to say because the baby is consuming TAC. It's because of the stimulation of various hormones which may cause more breakdown of tacrolimus in your body. So yes, tacrolimus levels are affected, and in fact, women who are pregnant require a little higher dose. So they have to keep a more tighter check on their TAC level, and post-transplant, based on the period from transplant, the TAC level is variable. So based on how far you are from your transplant, your doctor will know what is the range your TAC level should be in, and you will need higher doses. So how you can, as a patient, make sure is you check your TAC levels regularly.
Here a patient tells us that I get bruises in my thighs and legs and they go away once I get my period with good flow. Why is this?
So this is something not so much just with CKD, but many other women also talk of this thing. This is because of the hormones, the hormonal surge, as I talked to you about, which gets withdrawn and then you bleed. These hormonal surges are sometimes, I'm sure you have heard of a peri-menstrual sort of syndrome, which all of us sometimes joke about, I am near my period, which is why I'm behaving like that. So it's all because of the hormonal changes in your body. And sometimes in some women, that leads to more bleeding tendencies. Okay. Maybe a CKD woman would have it more because CKD itself is associated with bleeding tendencies. Mm-hmm. So it's a hormonal thing. If it's not threatening you and it's not affecting your joints, you're fine.
Okay, thanks doc for that. So the graft post-transplant is placed just above one ovary. The question here is, when pregnant, how will the child have enough space?
That's a very interesting question. So first of all, the graft, there's so many things that I need to explain here. One is the graft is not placed, is usually not abdominal, it's extra abdominal. Matlab, in outside your abdomen, a pocket is created on top of your peritoneum where they put the kidney. So the kidney is not coming in direct contact with your abdominal organs, the transplant kidney. It's created in an extra peritoneal pocket. So it's not coming in touch with your ovary. Secondly, your pregnancy doesn't happen at the ovary. The ova travels and the sperm travels, they meet at your uterus, and that's where the embryo implants and your pregnancy happens. So it's in the uterine area. But it's a valid question to ask, oh, I have a transplant kidney also in my tummy and I'll have a baby, is it okay? It's not seen that the transplant kidney is affected in any way structurally to cause it damage during pregnancy in women. I mean, pregnancy is a beautiful thing where somehow women's bodies just adjust to all sorts of things and gives you beauty and life.
Doc, coming back to the taboo question, could you just advise the women of the community, if, I'm not sure, if there's a right time for a woman to resume her a sexual activity post-transplant? Is there a right time or?
Yes, there is. That's a very good question. And I'm so glad you're asking this, because why are my women transplant patients not asking me this? Like, what are they doing? Like, this is something that should be brought up, and I bring it up myself in counseling. So you can resume sexual activity very soon after transplant, but the usual advice is wait for a month or so, because of there is healing and you are on high dose of drugs and everything. So after a month or so of transplant, sexual activity can be resumed. But please ensure that you are using contraception, because as I said that any kind of conception will harm, even if you don't want it, will harm your body as well as your kidney in such a sensitive period. The first 6 months and 1 year is a very sensitive period post-transplant. But sexual activity can resume after a month or so of transplant.
Can I ask you one question here?
Sure, Sandhya. Hi.
Yes. Sorry, Marianne. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Yes. Adding to what you just asked, Marianne, doctor, since I'm a post-transplant, I'm a woman. all these taboo questions is going, this is a very sensitive question, and most of the women wouldn't dare to ask anybody. I'm very sure about it, but I did ask, being my nephrologist, Jens, because he's a wonderful person, and he's ready to answer me any sort of question. It's like while we resumed, he didn't advise me any sort of time frame. Okay, like you said, it is okay, but what I personally went through was I had some sort of infection sort of thing. Okay, so that is when I took this up and I asked my nephrologist about it, because until then I never took this up, and it is not that I was shy, I was not reluctant about it. I am okay to ask, because being a part of Kidney Warriors Foundation, we need to ask every questions, right? So I asked him, and what he advised was, since the transplant, I mean the surgical area is right next to it, we need to be very careful and all that. Is it true that we get every woman who resume their sexual life will get infected in the sense some sort of itchiness and all that? I had to go through a week's treatment for that. Nothing like I got hospitalized. It's just a home treatment they gave. So would you just advise on this, the women who resume their sexual life post-transplant? I resumed after 6 months.
Okay. Like I said, even the 1 month period I said is, or 6 months for in your case, it's very individualized, because see, the post-transplant course, maybe your pre-transplant illness was something that brings you more risk for UTI. So the doctor is being extra careful, because we know that women have, if you don't, I'm going to tell everyone that women have smaller urethras. Because of this, women are generally more prone to UTIs. Sexual activity is one of the reasons, most major risk factor why women get UTI. Now, in post-transplant period, because it's not like everyone, if they resume sexual activity, they're going to get UTI. You just have to be careful about your sexual hygiene. I always advise women that after, this is for all women, that after intercourse, please go and make sure that you empty your bladder. Please make sure that you are keeping your private areas dry. If you think at the earliest sign of infection, especially in a post-transplant woman, don't ignore it, because usually, women, we're like, oh, a little bit of white discharge, it'll go away, a little bit of itching, it'll go away. You can't do that as a post-transplant woman, because your doctor is right. If you have a UTI, that could lead to a infection in your graft. So just being extra cautious, maintain your sexual hygiene. I don't think it should be a problem.
While you brought up UTI, I'm going to ask you a series of questions on UTI, but I'm going to still stick to the previous question. Doc, I come to, because I also speak to a lot of women from this community. I also get to understand that a lot of women who's been on the journey of pregnancy and affected because of the CKD, I think it's also connected to the mental illness, where I know a lot of women, not a lot, but a few, which could be a decent number, who actually don't get back to sexual activities just for the sheer fear of probably losing their baby, or probably just thinking that they might get hurt, or can you talk about this from a mental disease perspective? Would that be okay?
Yeah, of course. You mean sexual activity in kidney women?
Yeah, doc.
In women with kidney disease in general?
CKD women who have fallen pregnant, lost their babies, or not able to get pregnant, I feel because of a mental illness, and I think you probably need to seek professional help for that as well. But because of that, they don't get into sexual activities.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think there is a lot of depression in our CKD community, more so in women, and depression, anxiety, fear, and that leads to all this. And I wish, like, we had more support groups, and Kidney Warriors is doing a great job. But yes, you need to, it's not something you can just snap out of. And, women are usually told, that is just snap out of it. And it's not possible. Mental health is such a taboo here. You don't know that I have had a patient like fight with me. He was okay with me writing him antidepressants, but he would not go to a psychiatrist, because just going to a psychiatrist is a taboo. So I think if we can't do that, what we can do is what Kidney Warriors is doing. We can start a women's group. We can start, like group chats or group meetings where women just sit together and talk about these things. I think that itself makes them feel better. I mean, women have this beautiful thing where we can bond with each other. I see that when I interact with my women patients, they feel free, they feel happy. So I think the only way out is more community support, since unfortunately mental health illness and asking them to seek help is a big taboo. So, and I think women especially have this other social issue where they don't want to tell their families that I've been advised counseling. So the way forward, Marianne, is it's a good idea. Why don't we do this? Why don't we explore
Yeah,
this and start a group where we can have all these patients openly discuss things relating to fertility, sexuality, pregnancy?
sure.
Why not?
Thank you. That's a great idea, Doc, and it'll be so useful for the community. Thank you. I will definitely get back to you on this.
Sure, I'm up for it.
So talking about UTIs, okay, we have series of questions and I'm just going to join them together so that you can just answer it together. Okay. Does kidney CKD cause frequent UTIs? That's one. On the other hand, to reverse the question, can UTI affect kidney functions? And a variation to this is, can drinking enough water just reduce the risk of getting UTIs? And yeah, pretty much we'll go on with this and let's see if I can ask you something more.
Yeah. So coming to your first question, does CKD increase the risk of UTI? Not particularly. It's based on the cause of your CKD. Many patients who have reflux disease or who have urological disorders like stone disease, etc., which led to their kidney failure, yes, in them, it's the recurrent urinary tract infection that does cause a problem. As I pointed out, even cystic disease is known to be associated with recurrent UTI. So the cause of your CKD may expose you to a higher risk of UTI. Another thing with CKD, why UTI might be more is because they drink less water. They are asked to drink less water. And that coming to your third question, that does drinking more water prevent UTI? It's generally said that yes, if you dehydration is one of the things that affects your urogenital hygiene, and so being well hydrated and having a good urine turnover kind of prevents UTI. It's a very well known fact. We all accept it and we all know it. So yes, so maybe the CKD population drinking less water is causing that. The other thing about whether UTI causes CKD, yes, recurrent UTIs, recurrent urinary infections can affect kidney function, because many times, especially in diabetics, etc., older women, we see that the simple urinary tract infection, because of their low immunity, because of other diseases, spreads to the kidneys and causes something known as a pyelonephritis, which is an infection of the kidneys. Recurrent episodes like this, yes, can affect the kidney function.
Doc, then what would you suggest for a dialysis patient who cannot consume enough water and on fluid restrictions for them to deal with UTI problems?
So they have to, a lot of these dialysis patients who keep having these problems sometimes require what is known as an antibiotic prophylaxis. Sometimes we have to put them on a low dose of antibiotics for periods of time so that we can avoid the UTIs in them. Again, going on to sexual hygiene, urogenital hygiene, pay extra care, because you are more prone to it. You're already immunosuppressed, so focus there. And just not ignoring it, maybe seeking help early on than you would normally, would be my suggestions.
Okay, I'm just looking on to Facebook Live. This is a good friend of mine, and she is ready. Doctors asked her to go on for her second transplant. She lost her first transplant because of her pregnancy. She wants to know whether it's the right thing to do to go for a transplant during the COVID time, or would you tell her to do dialysis for a period and then do the transplant if the donor is ready? What would you recommend?
So this is a very specific and individualized. So transplants have resumed now, even in the COVID times, and all those patients who are in more desperate need of transplant because of other health issues, we are going ahead with their transplants. It depends on your center where you're getting it done, how careful, what are the precautions. You can discuss them with your nephrologist. And it's difficult to just generalize. I mean, transplants are going on. If your center where you're getting a transplant is careful, your nephrologist is very sure. Yeah. you could go ahead with the transplant. I wouldn't say either way. It's very individualized. Maybe we need to get into more detail of the case.
Doc, talking about your menstrual cycles and your CKD disease, does a woman with CKD have normal menstrual cycles, or do they get affected naturally because of the disease?
No, it's not. It's not like all women with CKD will have abnormal cycles. A higher proportion of them have menstrual irregularities, but it is possible for women with CKD, even in fact women with dialysis, to also have normal menstrual cycles. So it's, but the higher proportion of them would, of course, report more bleeding issues and abnormal cycles, abnormal bleeding disorders.
I think that pretty much brings me to the end of all the queries that we had and all the queries that I had in my head. Thank you for creating such a safe and beautiful environment for us to actually put our questions across so freely and just go with the flow. That's a special thanks from the bottom of my heart. Sandhya, do you want to have ask another question before I close this session, or are you good?
Actually, I have a lot of questions, but probably let's let's
Okay.
not eat of time.
I'll
I'll
Sandhya,
probably
let's
talk
get
to
on
her
a private
personally
chat.
because yes, because I'm sure even people on Facebook probably will, once I collect all the data from you, doctor, I can interact with the authenticated information, since the data that you have provided was just amazing. Because until now, we just had a little brush about whatever the disease is, about lupus, or how it, the word, I mean, I can't even pronounce that word, preeclampsia or whatever, because I really understood what exactly that is now, because with the data and with the information, authenticated information that you have provided, it's unbelievable. And I'm sure it will help us in educating people, educating patients on to a larger extent. I'm really sure it will help us a lot. Thank you so much for this. And I will have a private chat, since I usually visit Columbia, Asia. I'm sure doctors, you can ask about me to doctor surgeons there, they will know. And I will come and meet you once and we'll have a chat about it. And it'll really
Of
help me.
course. I'm always open to, especially the kidney warriors. I met Vasundhara ji personally as well. And if there are a lot of questions, we can always do another chat or make a group, or we can do another session, whatever works for you. Before you close, Marianne, I have to thank both of you, because this is the favorite part of my job, interacting with caregivers and patients, and really like having a chat. Like we should like be open to having these chats, having these discussions. And I learn a lot too. I learned, Sandhya, from your case. I learned from your experience. And knowledge is there for all of us to grow as people and grow as doctors and caregivers. So thank you, Kidney Warriors. I just appreciate this organization so much. Like, I think you are such a blessing to kidney patients. I encourage my new patients to join it, because patients need the support. They need the friends. They need, because they can't, I know it's so hard, when you're a regular guy going to college, you can't keep complaining about, I'm feeling thirsty. And they like sharing these things with their, other patients. And the best chats are held outside the dialysis room, like where everyone sits around and chats, and it's near my room, so I can overhear many of them. So yeah, that's where lifelong relationships are made. And Kidney Warriors, thank you again for this opportunity, and I hope it was useful. Please, you can
Very
share,
much.
DM
Indeed,
me
it was
any.
very much.
Thank you, thank you. Thanks, Marianne. Thanks, Sandhya.
Doc, I'm going to request you
Thank you, Doc.
to close the session on a beautiful, positive message for all the beautiful women that we have in our community. So, can you give us a line or two, please?
I think for like women are like the strongest people on planet Earth. So just like stay strong, stay happy, and the happy, strong women are the most beautiful. Like I love like the smiles on like women on dialysis and post transplant, all of them. So I think just like stay amazing. What else? Like women are amazing. Stay amazing.
Thank you, Doc. And on behalf of the renal community, the Kidney Warrior Foundation, I take great privilege once again to say a big thank you and a big hand of applause from my side. I do
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Marianne. Without you, it wouldn't have been possible to take
Yes,
this up.
such a
It's
great.
such a sensitive questions, and I'm really appreciable, thing. It's really wonderful. Thank you so much, Marianne, for this session.
Thank you, Sandhya, for bringing your case study forward for us to discuss. And,
It was my pleasure.
and Doc,
And thank you, Kidney Warriors Foundation, too.
And thank you very much, Dr. Garima. We really look forward to connecting with you in future with our women patients. And well, this is for all those of you watching this on the Kidney Warrior Foundation page, which is open to general public. Like you heard Dr. Garima say, it's very important for us to have a great support group. And we from the Kidney Warrior Foundation have this dream and passion to spread love, to spread cheer, to spread knowledge, and to connect, to create this wonderful bridge between the medical facility and the patient body. So if you're looking for a place to connect and learn more of what you're going through, please join us at the Kidney Warrior Foundation. And until then, this is me, Marianne from the Kidney Warrior, signing off, wishing you all a very good night. God bless you and always keep smiling. Thank you.
Thank you.